Howdy, howdy doody. One of the, one of the TV shows from my youth. I don't know. Maybe Richard, do you remember Howdy Doody? Are you old enough yet? I'm not sure if anyone
Yeah,
else
I
does.
remember.
Um, so good to see you. We're going to begin with our usual prayers, which Anna's going to put up. Not that I think most of you know them. Hi, Rachel.
Wow.
Oh, your desktop is as full as mine, Rachel. Yeah. Sangye chodang soki chognam la Jangshu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa shok. I should have said those. That was Anna's desktop. That wasn't Rachel's desktop. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye chudang soki chognam la jangchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye tupa sho. By offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. So that means just to imagine that you're visualizing the four continents, but you might say revisualized, transformed into a Buddha realm. May all migrators enjoy a pure realm due to this offering. O holy and perfect pure Lamas, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please send down, release a rain of vast and profound Dharma. Vast meaning the extensive teachings of the method side and the profound teachings of the wisdom side, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be subdued, of those to be trained. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay, thank you. Hi, Mikhail. We're going to begin, as usual, with a little meditation. So relax your body, relax your mind. Place your attention on the respiration, and then hold it with mindfulness, aided by the mental factor introspection. Remind yourself that you're not going to be utilizing your eyes, ears, nose, or tongue consciousness, maybe your tactile consciousness in watching the breathing. on the assumption that you've calmed your mind a bit by watching this relatively easy object to find. Let go of it now and instead place your attention on the mental consciousness. Maybe imagining withdrawing the airs from your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and even now body consciousness to the area of your heart chakra. Noticing the contents of the mind, because the mind itself is more subtle and needs to be understood through reasoning, the nature of the mind. Remind yourself that the fact that there is content arising and reabsorbing into the consciousness without any hindrance, without any resistance, without any friction. But this indicates that the mind, conventional nature of the mind, is clear light. This particular aspect of the clear light, it's more enduring nature. This means that I can give rise to virtuous thoughts if I wish, if I train, even if they're not yet habituated, and I can reabsorb negative habits of mind. First, not following them, so then suppressing them through their temporal antidotes, and finally eliminating faulty states of mind through their ultimate antidotes. I can become a better person. This is what's called the developmental Buddha nature, conventional clear light nature of the mind. It's just thinking that I have this should be enough as a cause to develop some joy. Like having found a precious jewel. The fact that we can recognize this is due to this auspicious moment of a life of leisure and endowment, which we created the causes for in previous lives. Which the Buddha extolled as having the ability to achieve the two great aims of moksha, liberation, freedom from cyclic existence, with a life like this, a life of leisure and endowment, or the great goal of Mahabodhi, the great enlightenment, not just the lesser Bodhi, lesser enlightenment of a Shravaka or a Pratika Buddha. It's still called their own enlightenment, but not the samyak sam, not the fully completed enlightenment of a Buddha. We were advised by the Buddha to think about this path as a viable option for our activities, for our striving, as opposed to his lesser vehicle teachings alone, because it leads to our own final enlightenment directly, and thereby to the ability to lead all living beings out of suffering into that same state. The critical factor to enter that is the generation of the mind of enlightenment. In Tibetan, we say semke, which is a synonym of bodhicitta. The mind that has analyzed well the plight of sentient beings who we've trained to see with a warm, affectionate mind. And see that to lead them, even to liberation alone, let alone enlightenment, in our present state, is not something that we're qualified to do. But to lead them to enlightenment, we ourselves have to first achieve enlightenment. And that the causes, cooperative conditions for that are the collection of merit and wisdom, as explained by Nagarjuna, commenting on the Buddhist Prajnaparamita Sutras and his fundamental wisdom, and Chandrakirti's commentary on that, meaning commentary, the Majjhimakavatara. Lama Khapa's penetrating insight into that, the Gompa Rapso, illuminating the intent that we're studying. The methods to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom that give rise eventually to the form bodies of the Buddha and the wisdom bodies of the Buddha. So remembering the depthless kindness of sentient beings, that we are all one family. They've all been my brothers and sisters and my mothers and fathers, friends numberless times. Even when strangers or when enemies, they have been kind to me. They've benefited me. Even they may not have intended as enemies to benefit me. They've been kind to me. I think for their sake, for their benefit, I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate on the material today with the goal of achieving enlightenment for their sake. And by the way, as a byproduct of that, I will achieve my own highest goal. But if I were to take my own highest goal as, my achievement of enlightenment just for my own sake alone, I wouldn't be able to, that wouldn't work. It wouldn't activate. I'm going to participate in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Yeah. So, yeah, bring your attention back to the present. Doris sends her salutations coming up, an icon through there. Yeah. Karen, good to see you. Jennifer and Louise have joined us also. there is an iPhone on there somewhere. Is that Rachel? I mean, is that Nadine by any chance? Maybe Nadine's off. Do you know where Nadine is, Mikhail? No? No. She's usually one of the first ones here. Okay. So, anyone have any Dharma question they'd like to ask at the beginning? And as I mentioned before, those of you who, if you have some other question besides the material that we're talking about that's also relevant here in your Dharma practice. Yeah, John.
So I'm going to run the risk of not being maybe very precise in this question because it's a whole sort of range of things that I'm thinking about in this section and its arguments directed at Yogacara. Maybe the simplest question first is does J. Rinpoche specifically say at any point that he's directing arguments against Yogacara, or does he say mind only? Which of those, or does he not even refer to a tenet? Does he talk about the viewpoint?
So the various names of the Yogacara, also Chittamatra, he mentions explicitly, and also, when Nagarjuna had written his fundamental wisdom, the formal Yogacara school had not evolved yet. So I don't know if that terminology was used by Nagarjuna or even Buddhapalita, maybe Buddhapalita, I'm not sure. Then of course, Chandrakirti afterwards, a Sangha's system that he heard from Maitreya in Tushita heaven, and composed these, where we received these 5 texts from Maitreya, and then he wrote commentaries and other texts on the Yogacara and Chittamatra schools, commenting on the various sutras. So Lama Tsongkhapa does so in a sense. All of those things he is refuting. So he's refuting mind only, and the inherent existence of consciousness, and explicitly refuting, as we will see further today, the Yogacara system, and preferring Nagarjuna's system, saying that anyone who falls from Nagarjuna's system will not achieve even liberation and so forth. So I think he's refuting all of them.
So can I follow up real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
Because this came up from particularly in listening to the recording of last week, and you read that particular statement of Chandrakirti saying that the masters who followed anything else would, implying that anyone who actually did get enlightened before, their view was a Madhyamaka, Prasangika Madhyamaka view. Otherwise, they couldn't have been enlightened.
Right.
Right. And so and then there was a really good question, I think it was Doris's, about the wisdom of translating it as Jinji Lo, as being false, like somehow that these views were false. And so the gist then, am I correct that it's incorrect to take these views as definitive rather than these statements as being interpretable?
Which statements?
Statements about the in Dasha Bhumika or any of the many times where the Buddha does say it is mind only, or that the 3 natures are. So these are genuine statements of the Buddha, but they are to be understood and interpreted. Their interpretable meaning needs to be
Yes.
elicited.
Yes. So all anything from the Prasangika point of view, and as we'll see a little more detail later, but we've mentioned before, any citation, any whole sutra, because the word sutra can refer to even a citation within a larger sutra, any citation or sutra that refers to ultimate that is teaching about the ultimate nature of reality is a definitive passage, is a definitive citation or definitive sutra. Anything other than that has to be interpreted, even things which are true, which the Buddha taught about karma and so forth. And then there's the other category of things that the Buddha taught, which have to be interpreted for other reasons. When the Buddha taught about karma and the Four Noble Truths and so forth, let's say the truths of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, and the truth, let's say the causal truths, those have to be interpreted because they appear to be inherently existent and they're not. But then there's another group of teachings that the Buddha gave that have to be interpreted because they had an ulterior motive in being taught, such as mind only and the various systems. In fact, we'll be talking about that today. So there's two kinds of things that have to that fall into that interpretable category. Anything which is not talking about emptiness has to be interpreted, even though it's true. And those teachings that the Buddha taught that on face value are incorrect or jinchilok, if you want, mistaken, say wrong, they were taught with an ulterior motive. So they have to be interpreted. Okay, good question. You probably have another follow-up, but we'll follow up on that later. So I wanted to read a motivation that Geshe Sopa gave in on July 29th in 2003. Usually in the morning sessions, in the morning, he would give a motivation, and in the afternoon session, he would just carry on from the morning teaching. So the main motivation was in the morning. So he was quoting from a text by Atisha called The Concisely Composed Method of Achieving the Mahayana Path. Tekpa Chempo Lamgi Drupa Tapki Tap Yiger Dupa. Yiger means like in words, in short words, which Geshe Zopa quotes himself in his commentary to the Lamrim Chemo. So Mikhail would know that in volume 1 of Geshe-la's commentary there, it's on pages 296 and 297, where he's quoting the same verse. But Geshe-la quoted it that morning. He said, and the Tibetan says, I'll just read one of the verses in Tibetan and then continue the second verse just in English. Jitar soni sonra le, trope langni jungwet se, cheka shendang minyon bar, dei nene trobatar. So that means just when an opportunity arises for a prisoner to escape from a jail. So jitar sonni sonrale. So sonra means jail. Just when something like that arises, langba, the escape from that place is unequaled by other prizes or important needs. So, for instance, say if if your cell in the jail has been adorned with various accoutrements, toaster oven and television or something like that. So you might be hesitant to escape, right? But if you've thought about it, you're in prison, fella, or or what's the equivalent of fellow for woman, gal? You're in prison, so so that you realize that escape from that place is unequaled by other sort of prizes that might be there. Or like the train station that you have in the waiting room. You've redone all the furniture and everything, waiting for the train. When the train comes, you shouldn't stay attached to that waiting room. Uh, you get on the train and go. So the second verse says, like that, when opportunities arise to cross the great ocean of cyclic existence, such as a life of leisure and endowment, right? You should emerge from the house of existence, your home of existence. So you're of samsara. So in a certain sense, samsara is our home, right? That's where we are right now. And we feel comfortable. We spend a lot of time becoming, accumulating wealth and comfortable things and friends and family and fame especially and so forth and so on. So you should emerge from the house of existence, which is unequaled by other important needs or other what would we say, prizes. In Tibetan, it says cheka. Cheka means either things that you need and so forth. So you can find that quotation in Geshe Zopa's translation of the Lanrim Chemo, the volume 1 on pages 295 and 296. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what Geshe said about that in that morning. For example, take a prisoner who strongly wants to get out of prison or jail and is always seeking that. When some special opportunity to escape arises, you've heard that someone's cut the fence or dug a tunnel or whatever, uh, or all the guards are off partying or something like that. When a special opportunity to escape arises, there's no comparison with anything else, with any other kind of important goal or situation. That prisoner thinks right away to escape from that disliked prison when an opportunity occurs. Like, for example, when the special opportunity arises to cross over the great ocean of samsara, over the great ocean of cyclic existence, that opportunity is unequaled by other important needs or other, special things that you have. Like I mentioned, that you might be hesitant to leave. Like the famous story of the Lama who was at the point of death, trying to meditate on transference of consciousness, and his guru, with his clairvoyance, recognized that what was hindering him from actually leaving his body was his attachment to the butter tea in front of him in his Tibetan bowl, right? So the Lama sort of sent a psychic message to the Lama that there's better tea in Tushita heaven to overcome that. So that was that important need, or that thing that was keeping him there. So unequaled by other important needs, then you should emerge from the house or the home of existence, home of samsara. What other kind of other important purpose or goal one has in mind, this lifetime, becoming famous or completing some project or something, not comparing escape with any of those at this time, one immediately tries to liberate from the home of samsara. In one way, samsara is like our home. We are always at home in samsara. In another way, on the other hand, it's a great jail, a great prison. Remember, we talk about that many times, the great analogies of samsara either being like a prison or an ocean. So here, when you have such an opportunity, this is the most important goal, to escape. You don't want to make equal you don't want to make it equal with whatever other important goals you have, samsaric goals you have. Instead, you should emerge from the home of existence. That means if opportunities arise to cross, a special kind of occasion, special opportunity. Now, when self-thinking, concentrating, we humans in cyclic existence in the ocean of samsara, there are all kinds of lives which are completely driven by delusions and karma, our afflictions, our klesha and karma, and therefore result in misery and suffering. Continuously, those things, doing those things, circle around and around. Among them, one of the best opportunities is to be born as a human life. And among humans, also, not only just mere human, just having a human life is not enough, to have a life of leisure and endowment, which is even more rare than being born as a human. Then place oneself's place where the good, pure, this kind of method, perfect method of teaching are available, valuable. Teachers are valuable. Practitioners are valuable. I was talking about the resources that we have of a life of leisure and endowment, and supporting many other things. Everything is valuable, and one's own inside, everything is valuable. You have intelligence, faith, opportunity, any kind of external temporary method, any kind of necessary conditions, everything is there right in front of you, as we've mentioned many times in our motivations. When you have this great opportunity, great fortune, if opportunities arise to cross, that's a quotation from the verse, that means this is the opportunity to escape, to cross to the other shore of the ocean of samsara, to leave samsara. The other shore means, right, nirvana or enlightenment, not attached to the home of samsara. Usually, up till now, from beginning this time, we have used this home of samsara, one's own place to stay, to come back again, wanting to stay, like the Lama who is attached to his butter tea. We want to come back to it. We don't want to leave here. Like at the time of death, afraid to leave, you're dying, you're leaving, you have this desire because of not understanding to be back here again. Now, this time, when you have the great fortune, the great opportunity to get out as soon as possible, uh, this is what we should do. Okay, I won't read any more of that. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. And then to continue in our text. So we are going to start today, as I mentioned last time, on page 361 of Thupten Jinpa's translation, and in the FPMT translation on page 205. It corresponds to this section. And for Diana and others who have don't have a written text, but have you can search within the ebook. So this place where we're starting says, this stanza shows how until one has established a faultless system of the conventional truth, there is no realization of ultimate truth as it is. We should hence follow only the tradition initiated by Nagarjuna. So this is where we had finished last time. So just before this, the paragraph just before that says, quote, why is this, one might ask? Quote, that falling short on the two truths means that liberation is out of reach. So that's a hypothetical question. Why is, if you fall short on the two truths, why does that mean that liberation, nirvana or enlightenment are out of reach? And the answer is because flawless positing of conventional truth is the means for realizing the ultimate truth as it is, while the realization of ultimate truth is the end, is the culmination resulting from these means. So those who fail to know the distinction between the two truths will enter the wrong or corrupt paths through false conceptualization. Okay, so that's more or less where we are. Making sense? You sort of know, have to think about it a bit. There are a lot of subtle arguments going on here. So let's continue from there. So Thupten Jinpa's translation continues. To substantiate this point by reference to scripture, so that means to give some scriptural citation that leads credence to this, Lama Tsongkhapa says, let me cite the meditative absorption definitely revealing suchness, which is another title for the, what? The meeting of the Father and Son, isn't it? Yeah. So Thupten Jinpa's note further on in that first paragraph says, in note 634, yeah, I had written incorrectly in my own text here, 637. So note 634 says, meeting of the Father and Son Sutra, which we've talked about many times. So as we've mentioned a couple of times, the meeting of the Father and Son Sutra has not yet been published in its entirety by the 84,000 consortium, but we're looking forward to that. So that note 634, Thupten Jinpa says, Tsongkhapa uses an alternative name of the sutra. The sutra is usually called the meeting of the Father and Son. The quote, as well as all subsequent stanzas from the same sutra cited by Tsongkhapa, are in fact found in Chandrakirti's auto commentary. They're actually, Lama Tsongkhapa is not just taking them out of thin air. He's quoting Chandrakirti, who quotes them, where they are provided in Chandrakirti's commentary in a continuous, uninterrupted manner. However, Lama Tsongkhapa divides them into sections and provides a helpful summary of the meaning of them more or less individually. Okay, so what's the first stanza here? So this is meant to substantiate this point that if you fall from a correct understanding of the two truths, you can't achieve liberation. So the first of the verses says, not hearing it from another, the knower of the world taught these two truths by himself. So that's referring to the fact that the Buddha had this actualization of enlightenment, realization of enlightenment, and knew all of these things directly without having to hear them from another and then regurgitating it to us, like the Shravakas. One of the etymologies of the name Shravaka. Remember, the hearers. They hear the teachings of the Buddha, and they actualize them, in their own liberation, achieving nirvana, and then they cause others to listen to them. That's why they're called Shravakas. So, not hearing it from another, the knower of the world is one of the epithets of the Buddha, taught these two truths by himself. They are the conventional and the ultimate truth. Nowhere does a third truth exist. Okay, we've talked about that before. So now Lama Tsongkhapa is giving a little commentary on that. This presents how the Buddha independently taught the two truths and how all objects of knowledge are encompassed within the category of the two truths. Then the sutra states, for the sake of engendering faith in bliss in those beings journeying to the state of a sugata, Sugata is, in Tibetan, what do we say? Dewa Shekpa. It's one of the epithets of a Buddha, right? So one who has gone to bliss, I guess you could say. The conqueror has revealed the conventional truth for the sake of engendering faith in bliss in those beings journeying to the state of a Sugata. The conqueror has revealed the conventional truth. This is for the sake of helping people of the world. So I think Venerable Jones' translation of that stanza is worth mentioning also here. So that same stanza is translated in her translation on page 205. For this reason, migrators will generate faith in the Sugata for the sake of happiness, the conqueror, the Buddha, for the welfare of migrating beings, in order to benefit the world, taught the conventional. So that also Lama Tsongkhapa has a little sentence after that in Thupten Jinpa's translation, says, this stanza declares the Buddha's purpose in teaching the conventional truth for the sake of helping people of the world. So then the next stanzas say, the 6 classes of beings revealed among sentient beings. So what are they? Hell beings. When we talk about the 6 Droa Rikjuk, right? Droa means migrators, Rik means classes, Druk means 6, the 6 classes of migrating beings. What are they? Hell beings, animals, and hungry ghosts. How come hell beings, animals, and hungry ghosts? Why not hell beings, hungry ghosts, and animals? Usually that's what we talk about, the lower realms, the hell realms, and then above that the preta realms, and then the animal realms above that. Why is it sometimes mentioned hell beings, animals, and hungry ghosts? Does anyone remember? Richard, do you recall?
That is more intelligent.
Yeah, Jeremy Down Under has nailed it. In terms of suffering, physical suffering, the pretas have greater physical suffering than the animals. But in terms of suffering of mind and so forth, the pretas actually, some of them are actually able to understand the teachings and they have sharper minds. So that's why they sometimes it's sort of they are greater than the animals whose minds are more diluted. So the 6 classes of migrating beings revealed among sentient beings, hell beings, animals, hungry ghosts, those of the demigod class. So those are the Lamin or the Asuras. Here it says demigods, humans, and devas, right? So among them, the lion among humans, that's another epithet for the Buddha, labels these conventional truths. So all of these are not considered to be ultimate truths. You know, the 6 classes of migrating beings. These are all samsara. These are all, and therefore they are all conventional truths. So the next stanza says, lower castes and likewise higher castes. Castes. Am I pronouncing that? So you can hear the T. Wealthy households and poor households. Laborers class and the class of servants. The classes of women, men, and neuters. So the Buddha was, the Buddha was presaging our age now. Whatever classification of beings there might be, you, peerless one, have revealed them to be transient. Having comprehended their truth, you you who are versed in conventions, knower of the world, you taught this truth to others. Yeah. So that Lama Tsongkhapa says these lines indicate the way the conventional truth was taught. So the Buddha taught all of these things, all of these classifications. You taught them to be impermanent, to be transient. Yeah, Don.
In the verse above, where we had animals and hungry ghosts in reverse order, we also have demigods and humans in a different order. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, what do you think?
I don't
So
know.
demigods are like, um, unlike the gods, are not, let's say, so in terms of physical suffering, you've got the human realm, the asuras who are on the below the tree at the top of Mount Meru. The devas are at the very top, the devas of the desire realm, right? You have devas of the desire realm and the form and formless realm. Here we're talking about the desire realm. So the devas are able to actually practice the Dharma. In fact, in my bi-monthly confession in the what's called the Sojong in the Tibetan Pushada, one if you're not able to be in a collection of the Sangha to have the sutra recited as is done in the when all of the monks meet together for the bi-monthly confession, you can do it by yourself, and you imagine a deva coming, a deva from the the desire realm coming and manifesting as the Buddha in front of you, someone who's keeping pure morality to be a witness to your confession. So the demigods are not as sharp as the devas. They're not able to understand the Dharma in the way that some devas can. Not that all devas practice the Dharma. Many of the devas are also, caught up in enjoying their pleasures and so forth. But the demigods have some obscuration that causes them out of jealousy to engage in negative activities. So the humans are actually more intelligent than they are. So they are placed in that intermediate position for similar kind of reasons that's in some lists. You have the hells, animals, and pretas. Okay. So, okay, lower caste. Okay. So now the next stanza begins. So next the sutra says, from Thupten Jinpa's translation, beings who delight in this surface level of truth. So the surface level of truth is in brackets there. So beings who delight in this, who delight in just the transient and the conventional, appearances of things, they revolve in cyclic existence with the eight worldly concerns. So we mention occasionally, and I should mention more often, the eight worldly dharmas, right? The eight worldly concerns. So the way that Thupten Jinpa parses them here, gain and loss, pleasing and unpleasing, say what is pleasant and what is unpleasant, praise and blame or disparagement, pleasure and pain. So what does that mean? Who can explain that? What are those eight categories? What are those eight worldly dharmas? What does that mean? Rachel knows.
So these are the worldly dharmas that keep us hooked into cyclic existence. So if we avoid them, we are on the path of dharma instead of just engaging in worldly activity.
Yeah, you say that. So these are obstacles to actually practicing the Dharma. So these are called the Jikten Chuge. So Jikten Chu. So this means worldly dharmas as opposed to the Sad Dharma, the holy Dharma. So that which actually holds us up from suffering is the holy Dharma. Uh, the realization of impermanence and the Four Noble Truths and empty selflessness and emptiness. These are the things, and all of the teachings of the Lan Rim that can lead to those realizations. The eight worldly dharmas are what? So they all have to do with desire. So the desiring for what does it say? Gain and desiring not to lose. So you have a strong wish that drives you for let's see, how did Venerable Joan translate this? Yeah, gain and non-gain, fame and disgrace, praise and criticism, happiness and suffering. So uh, we have a desire for gain and a desire not to lose. So uh, when there is an opportunity for something, like coupons or something like that, you don't want to lose out. So you're because of your desire not to lose out, not to miss the gain, you spend a lot of your energy and you desire to gain uh, wealth and so forth. Um, what are we saying here? Then we desire pleasure and we desire to be free of what's unpleasant. Um, so that drives us also. So we go out and we get things that are nice tasting and that are we seek out companions who are attractive visibly, somehow because of our karma, uh, we seek out uh, things that are pleasant, and we seek to be free from what's unpleasant. So when anything unpleasant comes up, we want to be free from that immediately. So all of these states of mind, these various desires, they create the causes for the kleshas, are delusions to arise. When we don't get what's pleasing, when we're not able to separate from what's unpleasant, we we feel unhappy, and therefore uh, that's one of the causes of anger. So then we desire praise, and we desire to be free from being blamed. Most of our lives, these are the main things that drive us within cyclic existence. These desires, these are the things that worldly people like ourselves, to some extent, or maybe to a lot of extent, these are the things that we imagine hold us from suffering. That's why they're called the worldly dharmas, because dharmas are thought to be that which upholds you from suffering. So, but these are from the worldly point of view what uphold you from suffering, but they don't actually uphold you from suffering from a dharma point of view. Although the world thinks if you have, uh, wealth, if you gain a lot of wealth and you avoid losing it, and you have a lot of pleasure of the senses, and you avoid what's unpleasant. You build gates around your castle to keep out the unpleasant things, and you only hear praise, and you don't hear any kind of criticism or blame. There's some politicians right now who are these, almost you can see all of these embodied in them, and you desire pleasure to the exclusion of just a neutral state. You're always seeking something that's more pleasant, and you want to avoid all pain. These are called the eight worldly concerns, and that's what concerns us, the eight worldly dharmas. So beings who delight in this surface level of truth revolve in cyclic existence with the 8 worldly concerns. So these cause us to revolve in cyclic existence. So it's a good thing to review these again in your own experience again and again. Lama Zopa Rinpoche used to quote Atisha many times, saying that any activity done with the evil thought of the 8 worldly dharmas, so you could say evil maybe sounds a little heavy, right? So you could say with the inferior thought of the 8 worldly dharmas, anything that's done with the intention of gaining, of having wealth, to receive pleasure, to be praised, and to hear what is pleasing and to avoid what's unpleasing, to hear praise and to experience pleasure. Any activity that's done with these motivations leads to rebirth in the lower realms. So that maybe means most of our actions up till now have been done with these things. We wanted to to hear pleasant things. We wanted to be loved. We wanted to be praised. We wanted to feel pleasure. We wanted to win as opposed to lose. So any of these activities that are done with the evil thought of the 8 worldly dharmas are the cause of rebirth in the lower realms. It doesn't mean that we've never created any virtue, because we've created some virtuous actions, but they've always been colored by these motivations. They've always been mixed kind of karma because our motivation hasn't been pure, free from the 8 worldly dharmas. Then the next verse continues, when they gain something, when we win or we gain something, attachment for it arises. That's one of the shortcomings. When living beings do not gain, this too causes distress. So when you don't get what you want, this causes unhappiness. Those not spoken of here should be known likewise. So that means that all of the other of the 8 worldly dharmas, here he's just talking about gain and loss, right? So, hi, Nadine has popped in. Good to see you. When we talk about the 8 verses of training the mind, one of the verses talks about, I'll train myself to accept the loss and give the victory or gain to the other, such as when criticized emotionally by others and so forth. So that speaks directly to that kind of thing. So the other of the 8 worldly dharmas that are not spoken of here should be known likewise. Through these eight diseases, their minds are harmed. Okay, Nenam Geiki. So, yeah. So Lama Tsongkhapa says in commentary to that, these lines show how clinging to this everyday conventional truth as real, right? So we've talked about this this is not something new. We've talked about this many times, because on the conventional level, everything that appears to us appears to be real, to be truly existent, inherently existent. And due to clinging to this, because we believe it, we assent to that reality, and delighting in it, delighting in this drama, involves acting with 8 worldly concerns, and how tormented by these 8 worldly concerns, 8 worldly dharmas, beings revolve in the cycle of existence, the cycle of samsara. By presenting the first 2 worldly concerns, gain and loss, the sutra states how we should understand the remaining ones as well, those that are not mentioned explicitly. So that's pretty clear, right? Anyone have doubts? Jennifer, what do you think? More or less clear? Yeah. And I can't tell. I think, are you in the same location as Paul? Are you in New York and he's in Westchester County or what?
We're in the same house and different ends.
Different ends. Okay, yeah. I couldn't remember. Okay. So now the next snippet from the Sutra of the Meeting of the Father and Son. Those who speak of this conventional truth as being the ultimate recognize them as having a flawed intellect. Them means those who speak of this conventional truth as the ultimate. So those people who would say, this is, this is all there is, that, to gain, to have that famous commercial I think I've mentioned many times about the man on the sailboat surrounded by beautiful girls, and he said, you only live life once, so you have to grab as much gusto as you can. So the gusto means, the wealth of the sailboat and the beautiful companions and the beer and and fame and so forth. Those who speak of conventional truth as being the ultimate, you should recognize them as having a flawed intellect. So that Lama Tsong FPMT translation of that says, those propounding the conventional as the ultimate should be understood as having erroneous intelligence. So that note 628, just to make sure, 638 is just talking about the point in the sutra, what page it's found. So Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to that says, these lines explain how those who assert conventional truth, the six classes of beings and so forth, as being the ultimate. So not just the six classes of beings, but the eight worldly dharmas and so forth as the ultimate. That is to say, as having true existence, we should recognize them as having a distorted understanding. So these lines indicate how the Buddhist schools that assert this have flawed philosophies. What schools assert that? He says, so these indicate how Buddhist schools that assert this have flawed philosophies. Which Buddhist schools assert that these have true existence? Paul, what do you think?
I think you could say everything other than prasangika.
Well, here he's saying,
or true existence, you mean?
If it's true existence, it would be the first two schools, right?
The first two schools, right? Yeah.
Louise, what were you going to say, Louise? I noticed you were about to put up your hand there.
Well, I was going to throw out Yogacara, but basically all the other schools besides Prasangika. But
Yeah.
true existence versus real self-existent. How does that differ? I'm kind of I get stumped there.
Yeah. So when we talk about the Madhyamaka point of view, is all phenomena are empty of true existence. That covers both the Svatantrika and Prasangika, true existence. So with all of the schools below that, they accept some kind of true existence, right, below the Madhyamaka. So the Chittamatra and the Sautrantika and the Vaibhashika all accept that phenomena have some kind of true existence. From the point of view of Prasangika, true existence means that phenomena, if phenomena were truly existent, they would exist the way that they appear, right? And the way, so what is the way that they appear? They appear to be existing from their own side, unchanging, not dependent on anything else. So to accept that is, a great error. So when you talk about true existence, the opposite of true existence is the emptiness of true existence. So the emptiness of true existence also is synonymous with selflessness, right? The selflessness of persons. You could say the emptiness of true existence of persons and the emptiness of true existence of phenomena. So that's called the emptiness of persons and the existence and the emptiness of phenomena. So that's how those are related. So then just continuing, who speak of unattractive as attractive. That's one. Those who speak of pain as happiness, as joy. Those who speak of what is not the self as a self. And those who speak of what is actually impermanent, those who speak of it as permanent, who delight thus in these and grasp at signs, should they ever hear the Sugata's words, terrified, they will not comprehend and will shun them. So the people who have these four distortions, right? The four distorted views. Remember when we've talked about these before. Oh yeah. So, what do we say? Those who speak about the unattractive as attractive, let's see here. What does that say here? Oh, I have the wrong note there. Okay. Those who speak of the unattractive as attractive, pain as joy, what is not self as self, and what is impermanent as impermanent. So where do those come up? Where do those four distorted views come up? Do you remember, Karen, by any chance? Are they related to the four wrong views of the First Noble Truth?
Yeah, so would it be that when we see pleasure as attractive, it's really unattractive, but we are attracted to it? Is that what they mean by that?
Right. What is the second? Pain. Well, the second one says pain as joy. So when we talk about what is actually suffering and we conceive of it as pleasure. So what does that mean when we think of ordinary worldly pleasure as being really real pleasure? That's incorrect because it's all even contaminated pleasure is of the nature of suffering, right? So there is, from the point of view of the Aryas, all of conventional experiences are of the nature of suffering. So what is unattractive is attractive. So that usually what that means is that actually those things that we inappropriately think of as attractive, the human body, for instance, or anything else that we can attribute attraction to, they are actually of the nature of repulsiveness. Yeah, Diana, do you have to leave?
No, I would not interrupt the class for that.
Oh. So what do you think?
Finish your paragraph, and then I wanted to say something, please.
Yeah. So when it's talking about unattractive is attractive, so this is talking about perceiving that which is actually repulsive. Like, say, for instance, when we talk about the human body, if you were to open it with the scalpel of the mind, And if anyone's transcribing this, you have to say, I'm not telling you to cut your body open, but if you were to investigate the body, there's nothing within it that is actually attractive. Individually, the pores are filled with grease and all sorts of vicious things. So that's the first one. When we speak of the unattractive as attractive, what is actually repulsive, if we think of that as attractive, if we think of that which is actually the nature of suffering or pain, if we think of that as actual pleasure or joy, that's a mistake, because all of the things that we conventionally experience as joyous or happy are actually the nature of suffering. If we think of that which is selfless as being a self, which is actually empty of being a self, if we think of that as having a self, that is a distorted view. And if we think of that which is impermanent as permanent, that is also one of these distorted views. Those who delight thus in these and grasp its signs, who delight in these distorted views and grasp its signs, should they ever hear the Sugata's words, they would become terrified and they will not comprehend and shun them. Diana, what do you think about that?
There are two things that have recently become kind of axiomatic in certain areas of psychology and addiction medicine.
Yeah.
The first is that we can define as an addiction anything where it isn't giving you what you want, but you insist on getting more and more of it. And
Right.
the other is that you can never get enough of the thing that you don't actually need. That the thing that does not actually meet your needs, you'll never get enough of it.
Right. So that mirrors very much some of the Buddhist, when we talk about never finding satisfaction
Yes.
and so forth. Yeah.
And also being extremely drawn to the things that are never going to do it.
Right. So like in my graduate school days in Philadelphia, being in contact with some people who were drug addicts who were injecting themselves with, I think there was usually heroin. They were thinking that this is real bliss, but all it was doing at that point was reducing that itch, what's it called? The state of John, do you know what I'm talking about? That state of anticipation, wanting to get that high. All it does is reduce one discomfort.
Hmm.
What's it called when you're in
Withdrawal.
withdrawal? Withdrawal. But replacing it with the suffering of the drug itself. Once you experience that as pleasure at first, and then it turns into suffering. That's what we call changeable
But
suffering.
what's got to be recognized is just the mere attraction to addictions like that for pleasure is sometimes a distraction from some kind of deeper trauma that people have.
Oh yeah,
They're trying to avoid a
yeah,
greater suffering, and then they'll swap that suffering for the suffering of the drug itself.
right. So that's
Just
why
from that I've seen lately. So just
Geshe Narendra used to say that all of these afflictions, desires, and so forth feed upon. They're all entangled like a ball of yarn that is not like a nice rolled ball of yarn that you can just take off easily, because they're all sort of feeding one another. All of the delusions, they cause us incredible suffering. Okay, so then the next stanza says, having forsaken the Sugata's words, they will experience relentless sufferings in the hells. They seek happiness, but inappropriately. And so the childish will endure the 8 types of suffering. So when it says they seek happiness, but inappropriately, Yeah, that's like the drug addict, or uh, yeah, they're seeking, they want to be happy, but what they're actually doing in pursuing what they consider to be happiness is actually creating the cause of suffering. So that's inappropriate. Yeah, John.
I just wanted to ask about one thing that along the way, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying uh, just above this verse you just read, or two, sorry, the two verses just read, uh, referring to those the mistake of perceiving as having true existence, which would include the two lowest tenets schools. But then the second to last verse enlisting the mistake of seeing what is actually unattractive as attractive, and etc. That's foundational to Sautrantika and even by Vaibhashika, right? Isn't that statement of misperception in Abhidharma Kosha?
Right. We even the Sautrantic, even the Vaibhashika consider those as distorted views.
Those are distorted views, right? But but then there's this insertion. I said, okay. In any case,
So what it's saying is that anyone who holds these kind of distorted views, when they encounter the teachings of the Buddha, which is in contradiction to that, they will be terrified. They'll get upset, and they will not comprehend, and they will avoid those teachings. They'll shun those teachings. So that's why the Buddha has to teach sometimes what seems to be inappropriate things, even talking about the distorted views, um, in order to entice people to listen to the teachings of the Buddha. So let me expand upon this. So having forsaken the Sugata's words, they will experience relentless suffering in the hells. They seek happiness, but inappropriately. So that's when we talk about inappropriate attention, right? So paying attention to things in the wrong ways, thinking that this will actually bring you pleasure, this will actually bring you into the sufferings of the hells and the other sufferings. So this childish will endure the 8 types of suffering. So Thupten Jinpa kindly mentions here in that note 639, he says the 8 types of suffering are those of birth, aging, sickness, death. Those are 4, right? Getting what you don't want, that's a strange way of putting it, is, yeah, not being able to hold on to what you like. So getting what you don't want means meeting with what is undesirable. So that means encountering any kind of suffering. Then not being able to hold on to what you like. So that means first meeting with what's unattractive, separating from what's attractive. Then 7, not getting 7. What did I say? Not getting what you want. So this is a little bit different than the other 2. Not getting what you want means, yeah, like Mick Jagger's, you can't always get what you want, right? Not getting what you want, and the all-pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. So he says, for a detailed presentation of these 8 types of suffering, see Lama Tsongkhapa's Lanrim Chemo, the great treatise, and he quotes volume 1, pages 265 to 280. I assume that means the translation that was done by the original translation committee. There are 3 volumes of Lanrim Chemo. Not talking about Geshe Sopa's commentary on that. So are you familiar with the eight sufferings, you guys? Mikhail, are you familiar with the eight sufferings?
Not in great detail, but yeah, I read the Lam Chenu and I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so this should be one of our, our daily kind of recollections. When you're doing the Vajrayogini mandala, Mikhail, if you're Vajrayogini sitting on top of the eight-petaled lotus, rather than just thinking there's an eight-petal lotus, you can think of one petal representing the suffering of birth, one petal suffering of aging, one, what is it, sickness and death, and then the intermediate petals are slightly different, right? Encountering what's unattractive, problems in the world, getting hassled, separating from what you like, another petal, sort of subpetal, another petal, not getting what you want. So many things, we want to be happy, we want to have companions, never finding them, like the hungry ghosts. That's the predominant suffering of the hungry ghost, right? Not getting what they want, not finding food, not finding water, and so forth. And then the last petal, the compounded suffering. So there's a way of encountering sort of reviewing those every day, even when you're practicing your tantric mandala. Particularly in Vajrayogini, there's also the Chujung, which has six. It has 3 points and then 3 other points, so 6. There you can review the 6 sufferings. So I just mentioned that to those of you who practice those kinds of things. So why does aging come after birth? Why doesn't that come after sickness? Birth, aging, sickness, and death. KT, do you know?
I think it's because we start aging immediately after birth, and we're getting sick the whole time.
Yeah.
On and off.
So sickness usually means the various kinds of ailments. So you don't notice those immediately. As soon as you're born, you begin aging, and that continues in extreme form up until death. Then once you start aging, sicknesses can occur. You can get measles here in the United States now, even though it's been eradicated in most parts of the world for a long time. And then the suffering of death. All of those are relatively easy to understand. What's of those the most difficult to understand is the suffering of birth, and that oftentimes in our culture we think of the embryo or the baby in the womb as being some kind of ideal state that we'd like to go back to. I'd like to go back to the womb or something like that. But as Geshe Darge used to say, being in the womb is like being locked in the toilet of an Indian train. I don't know if any of you have been on an Indian train, jostled around with foul smells and so forth, and loud noises and so forth. So it's not, those beings who have clairvoyance realize that the baby is not experiencing pleasure in the womb, in the process of, and of course, in the process of birth, coming out of the womb and so forth, being squeezed and so forth is not pleasant. Then these other sufferings, meeting with what is unattractive. It means most of the things that we experience that hassle us, being in a traffic jam and so forth, being separated from what we find attractive, losing our sweethearts, losing our money, losing our fame and so forth, not getting what we want, like the Pretas, and the all-pervasive suffering of conditioned existence. Okay. So just to do that. So let's take a little break. Let me just mention that next paragraph before we do. It says, these lines explain how those who are habituated to the 4 distortions, right? We talked about before the four distorted views, viewing what is unattractive as attractive and so forth. Those who see what is actually repulsive as attractive and so forth, as well as non-Buddhists tainted by doctrinal tenets affirming such distortions, would turn away were they to hear the Buddha's words. Because of this, they will depart to the hell realms. Though they may search for the bliss of liberation, since it is through incorrect means, if they were to search for liberation, not only will they not attain liberation, they will instead be tormented by vast amounts of suffering. Okay, so yeah, okay. Thank you. I hope you had a nice, that was a little short break. I shouldn't have started so quickly, but I think many of you are back. Don, how's it going? Making
Well,
sense?
thank you. I'm enjoying the day.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. Rachel is hydrating like I should be. I haven't been hydrating enough. Okay, let's continue. So again, there are a couple of more stanzas from the meeting of the father and son that is Lama Tsongkhapa, or I think it's just Chandrakirti actually refers to it as this other text, this title, Meditative Absorption Definitely Revealing Suchness. So what the history of that, why that's an alternative title of that, I don't know the history. Paul, do you know anything about that? Why that is sometimes called that?
I do not, George. Usually it's like if there was something in a colophon, but I think the first time we looked at that, I tried to find something and I couldn't.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so let's continue. A couple more verses here. Whoever understands with undistorted mind the teaching of the benefactor of the world will transcend all births, attaining true peace, just like a snake that shuns its own skin. So like a snake that comes out, or like a moth that comes out of its cocoon, or a snake that shuns its own skin, will attain actual peace. True. So when we say, so Louise here, it says, will attain true peace, attaining true peace. So true doesn't mean truly existent, it means actual peace, right? All of these phenomena are devoid of intrinsic nature. He who hears these words and experiences joy, emptiness, signlessness, or the ultimate, will attain the unexcelled enlightenment. So when we talked about the qualities of the vessel to hear the teachings on emptiness, remember there was one that when you heard the word emptiness, or when it was some synthesis was explained, all phenomena are empty of existing the way that they appear. When your hairs would rise from the pores of your skin, and tears would come to your eyes with great joy, this indicates that you have some imprint from previous lives, having heard about the utility of emptiness and its great benefit, how it can help us escape from cyclic existence. That's what we're trying to maybe leave some seeds in our mind now. Whoever's, yeah, all of these phenomena are devoid of intrinsic nature. He who hears these words and experiences joy due to the imprints of past lives, or maybe even from having studied earlier this lifetime, even in the previous years, having studied this, and then hearing it again, who experiences joy at that time, emptiness, signlessness, or the ultimate, they will attain the unexcelled enlightenment. Then finally, conqueror, referring to the Buddha, you saw the aggregates to be empty. You saw the elements and sense spaces to be likewise. When we talk about, remember when we talk about the three categories, we talk about the pumpo, the skandhas, the aggregates, the entrances and the ayatana and what do we call it? The dhatus, the what do we call it? Elements or whatever. So when we've seen the Buddha talked about emptiness with respect to all of them, the aggregates are empty of inherent existence and so forth. You saw the elements and sense spaces to be likewise, that our sense towns are devoid of signs. O sage, all of this you have seen as it is. So again, I think that verse, that note 640 only refers to the page number. Yeah. So there he is referring it to the meeting of the Father and Son Sutra rather than that other name. So this is explaining that, having stated how if one understands the meaning of the profound truth in an undistorted manner, one will attain freedom from the cycle of existence. One will escape from samsara. The sutra responds to the following question: how does one gain such understanding? It responds to that by explaining that one will do so if one experiences joy when one hears that all phenomena are devoid of intrinsic nature, and so on, and then comprehends this and then comprehends this truth. So that's again talking about the qualified, what do we call it, receptacle, qualified recipient of the teachings, someone who has this innate joy, sort of interest in hearing the teachings. They will follow the teachings and they'll actualize it. So that's why when we do our meditation in the morning, when I say when you're meditating on even the conventional clear light nature of the mind, to try to join with that a sense of joy. Oh wow, because the mind is this way, everything's possible. I can get better. I can become a true human, and so forth. How does one gain such an understanding? By explaining that one will do so if one experiences joy when one hears that all phenomena are devoid of intrinsic nature, and so on, and then comprehends this in truth, and then comprehends this truth. In brief, conventional truth was presented in the prior set of stanzas, and ultimate truth is presented here in this final set. So elements refers to earth and so on, the four elements. What are the four elements? The earth element, fire element, the water element, and the air element, right? Sometimes we add, what do we talk about, the 5 or 6 elements, right? What do we add if we talk about more than 4? Do you know, Mikkel?
Consciousness and space.
Yeah, the space element. Okay, elements refers to the earth and so on. Is that right, Paul?
I believe so.
So,
I guess if it's talking about Abhidharma.
So earth, water, fire, and air. Well, when Nagarjuna talked about you can't find a person in the 6 elements, yeah, so consciousness is impermanent, but is space one of them? Space is permanent though, right? Mika?
There are 2 kinds of space. You have the physical space. I don't know. Yeah, but I think it's space. Yeah.
Okay.
One of the 6.
So something to think about. We can talk on Monday. Elements refers to earth and so on. He doesn't say whether he's just referring to the 4 or 5 or 6. Sense bases refers to the sensory objects such as form, sound, and so on. So the text continues. So how can there be liberation for those who lack the knowledge of conventional truths as mere designations, and ultimate truth in terms of the absence of intrinsic existence? So Thupten Jinpa again has a note here, 641 says, from this sentence and to the end of this section, including the citations of the King of Meditations Sutra, the Samadhi Raja Sutra, which is coming. Tsongkhapa transcribes Chandrakirti's commentary with additional explanatory words interspersed. So that's not surprising. Usually that's what Lama Tsongkhapa is doing. He's almost sometimes just giving what Chandrakirti said in his Bhashyam with some explanatory words in between. Sometimes he goes on to explain in much more detail other things that Chandrakirti hasn't talked about explicitly. Sometimes he leaves out some sections of what Chandrakirti has said, very long quotations and so forth. So how can there be liberation for those who lack the knowledge of conventional truths as mere designations and ultimate truths in terms of the absence of intrinsic existence? Therefore, those who propound consciousness only have entered only an erroneous path. So I think that's talking about those who, how to say?
That's Chittamatra or?
Chittamatra, right? So, hundreds of sufferings. So how did Venerable Chun translate? The meaning of so these verses indicate that when the meaning of the profound teachings is unmistakably realized, one will be liberated from cyclic existence. Then with regard to the thought, how is this realized? It is taught that through rejoicing upon hearing the advice that all these phenomena are devoid by nature and so forth, when the meaning of this is realized, one will attain enlightenment. While previously the conventional was indicated, this indicates the ultimate. Then the elements are the earth element and so on, so forth. The spheres are forms, sounds, and so forth. How can there be liberation for those who are devoid of the knowledge that conventionalities are mere imputations? So that's the position of the Prasangika, right? Conventionalities are merely imputedly existent. They don't exist truly or inherently. How can there be liberation for those who are devoid of that knowledge, who don't have that knowledge that conventionalities are mere imputations and that ultimate truth is the lack of inherent existence? How can they achieve enlightenment? Therefore, those who propound mere consciousness, that's semsampa, semsam, those who propound chittamatra, have only entered an erroneous path. So this overcomes any kind of thing that's saying Lama Tsongkhapa was saying that the chittamatra view and the Prasangika view are compatible or something. No, it's that anyone who holds that chittamatra view as correct has entered an erroneous path. The conventional truth indicated here is the method. So when we talk about method and wisdom, conventional truth on the right side is the method. The ultimate truth is the wisdom that realizes ultimate truth is the wisdom sign. So then there's a quotation from the Samadhi Raja Sutra, right? The King of Meditation Sutra. Yeah, so this is a little bit complicated. So the quotation says, reality, which is devoid of letters, yeah, so this is a little bit complicated. So when it says devoid of letters, the actual Tibetan, the actual Sanskrit of that is a word that can also mean, as Jinpa mentions, can also mean is unchanging. Anyway, reality which is devoid of letters, who listens to it? Who could listen to a reality which is devoid of letters? Who teaches it? By superimposing up onto what is unchanging, still some listen and some teach it. Wow. Okay, that is little bit complicated. So Jimpa's note at the end of that verse, note 642, says, Chandrakirti's commentary does not specify the exact source of this quote, and though Tsongkhapa identifies it as from the King of Meditations Sutra, I have been unable to locate this verse in the edition of the sutra in the Derge Kangyur. So the Derge is one of the printed editions of the Kangyur, the Buddhist teachings, right? So this is one of those verses, we've run across several of them, that is quoted again and again. The Buddha, so I think Chandrakirti in the Bhasham just says, the Buddha said, and here Lama Tsongkhapa says he said it in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, but you can't find that verse in the Samadhi Raja Sutra that we have. Maybe there was some edition of the Samadhi Raja that Lama Tsongkhapa had, but this is one of those verses that is just attributed to the Buddha that we've encountered before, several verses like this. So on Monday, I will provide the Sanskrit of this from, there was a scholar called David Burton who wrote an article called Wisdom Beyond Words. Paul, did you supply that with me or did I find that?
I think you might have found that. I don't remember it.
So he has the Sanskrit of that. It's verse 20. So what hearing and what teaching can there be of the unutterable Dharma? This is another way of translating that stanza, supposedly from the Samadhi Raja. What hearing and what teaching can there be of the unutterable Dharma, which Jimpa had translated as without letters, so that you can't say it in words. In other words, unwordable, unutterable Dharma. What can be heard and what can be taught about the unutterable Dharma? And yet the unutterable Dharma is heard and taught through superimposition. That's his translation of that. In the Prasanapada, Chandrakirti cites the same passage, again without giving the source. And then then I have the from the clearly worded where that is quoted. So that verse is also quoted in the Prasanapada, and in that Chandrakirti doesn't give the source either. He just says the Bhagavan said, something like that. And then in the Ocean of Reasoning, if you happen to have the translation of that by J. Garfield and the Geshe, on pages 315 to 319, 318 to 319, which is the chapter on the examination of nature or examination of essence. It says, without letters, how could the teaching be presented and heard? And by what teacher? That which is fabricated is without letters and can neither be heard nor taught. So that's a little bit difficult stanza to understand. Jeremy, what are you thinking?
Actually, my question was about the previous paragraph. They have the term mere designations and sometimes mere imputation, I think, also synonymous. So my question is, if a phenomenon is merely designated, does it follow that it is known by a sentient being?
Well, I'm not quite sure how to put it. So if something is known by sentient beings, it is a phenomena, right? So there are two kinds of phenomena, ultimate phenomena, ultimate truths, and conventional truths. So conventional truths exist as mere imputations, as mere designations. What about ultimate truths? Are they mere imputations?
I would say yes, they are.
Yeah. Well, from the conventional point of view, they would be, if you look at them in post-meditation, in a meditative equipoise, ultimate truth, emptiness is experienced not as a mere designation. It is actually existing the way that it appears, empty of inherent existence. Whereas when you rise from meditative equipoise and you experience conventional truths again, because in meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, no conventional phenomena appear, right? No conventionalities appear. So there's no talk about mere designations. Conventionalities are mere designations. But when you arise from meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, and conventionalities appear again, those conventionalities exist. How do they exist? Do they exist truly or inherently? No. They exist as mere names, mere designations or imputations upon a basis of designation, and they are ineffable. They're beyond, beyond explanation. Like the example I've mentioned several times when I asked the Dalai Lama, when Jeffrey Hopkins was translating it for him in Dharamsala, if a table is not its parts, it's not the collection of parts, it's not something that's separate from the parts, what's the table? And the Dalai Lama said through translation that this borders on the inexpressible, how conventional, how phenomena are conventionally existent. One of the things that Nadine and I have talked about a lot, that in the Vajracharaka and in the other sutras, when it talks about a bodhisattva is just a name, right? That means it's just merely designated. What does that mean? That means if you try to look for what the bodhisattva is, or if you try to look for what a form is, or a flower is, or something, you can't find it anywhere. It's just the flower, the form, the color. The bodhisattva is just a name you attribute to a collection of parts conventionally. It's merely designated. So that's only referring to the conventional truth. So does emptiness have a conventional truth? Yeah, you can in post meditation, you can talk about emptiness, and that emptiness that you talk about there in post meditation is a mere designation, right? What do you think, Paul? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Mikhail, do you agree? So generally in meditative equipoise, conventionalities do not appear. So you are actually experiencing actual ultimate truth there of emptiness.
And even in meditative equipoise, directly realizing emptiness, you don't have any conceptual thought, and you would not impute anything.
Exactly. So there's many reasons to say the same thing, that what is appearing to you, no conventionalities are appearing, and in that meditative equipoise, there is no conventional mind, no conception arising, no conventional thought. The mental image of emptiness has disappeared, and you're actually realizing it directly. So let me just finish this section, and we'll continue next week and on Monday. So Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to this stanza that is supposedly from the King of Meditative Sutras, or the Samadhi Raja Sutra, but is not found there. Lama Tsongkhapa says, the first two lines of this stanza present how things do not exist on the ultimate level. Yeah. So it is in relation to things devoid of letters on the ultimate level that through superimposition, or in other words, that is, through conceptual designation, one comes to listen as well as teach about it. So things don't exist ultimately, but due to the ability on the conventional level to designate things conventionally, that's how you can teach and listen to phenomena. The Sanskrit word for letter, or maybe you could say word, yige, is akshara. So what does that mean? What does shara mean? Does anyone know?
It means to disintegrate or to what's the word?
Yeah, pass away.
Pass away.
Yeah, yeah. So an akshara, what does it say here? Here it says akshara. Let me see here. So akshara means both letter, because a letter is said to be like unchanging. So kshara, just the last part of that word without the a prefix, means essentially permanent, past that which is capable of passing away. Akshara. So when you add the syllable a at the beginning, remember that's a negative particle in Sanskrit. That would mean something that's not changing. So the Sanskrit term for letter is akshara, which refers to both letter and unchanging. So that's another name for words or letters, that they are unchanging. They're sort of like what we say, sort of like the Vedic idea that sounds are immutable, like the sound of the words of the Veda are something that have existed and have never changed. Here, however, it is more appropriate to render the phrase as devoid of letters, Lama Tsongkhapa says. Although the term superimpose often refers to exaggerating what does not exist as existent, right? We superimpose on something qualities that are not actually there. And what is not as is, we should not confine the meaning of the word to this alone. The term can also refer in a general sense to something posited on the basis of being imputed by conceptual thought. So anything that is imputed by conceptual thought is a superimposition. So it is by abiding in the conventional truth alone that the ultimate truth is revealed. We have to depend upon the conventional truth to understand the ultimate truth. We have to hear the letters, the words, and so forth, which are merely imputed, and it is on the basis of that. So it is by abiding in the conventional truth alone that the ultimate truth is revealed. And when one comprehends the ultimate truth on this basis, then one attains the ultimate truth of nirvana. So Nagarjuna's fundamental wisdom says, what is this? This is, this is chapter 24, verse 10. So chapter 24, remember the fundamental wisdom has many, many chapters, examination of many things. The 24th chapter is the examination of the Four Noble Truths. So this is the 10th verse of that chapter. And so Thupten Jinpa's translation says, without relying on the conventional, the ultimate truth cannot be taught. And without realizing the ultimate truth, nirvana cannot be attained. So in the Ocean of Reasoning translation, remember Lama Tsongkhapa's text, Ocean of Reasoning, Rikbe Gyatso, is a commentary, a word commentary to the Prasanapada, which is Chandrakirti's word commentary to fundamental wisdom. So it has the same chapter structure. So in that one, Jake Garfield's and Geshe's, what was it? Sonam, what is it, Paul? Remember?
Samdong Rinpoche. I think it was Samdong Rinpoche, wasn't it?
Samten.
Oh, Geshe Samten. Geshe Samten.
Yeah,
That's
now
right.
on
Sorry.
something.
I want something. Yeah, my old buddy whose name I keep on forgetting. So in their translation, it says, without depending on the conventional truth, the meaning of the ultimate cannot be taught. Without understanding the meaning of the ultimate, nirvana is not achieved. So if you want to check the commentary on that in that book, if you have it, that's on page 498. Okay. So yeah, so that's where we're going to stop. Next time we're going to begin how refuting dependent nature is not similar to refuting worldly convention. So there's an argument that's coming up. The Chittamatra would like to say that that if you Prasanghikas refute our inherently existent dependent nature, you rascals, then you are refuting worldly conventions, which supposedly you accept, but eat it. Sean, what are you thinking?
I'm just wondering if you could expound on if you're superimposing something onto something that's unchanging, how does that superimposition itself become impermanent?
Well, you can superimpose. So superimposition means you impute upon something, or you designate it. So the screen is changing here. Some people are leaving, so I'm getting confused. So yeah. So when you impute, that is a conceptual operation, right? Imputation, Sean, right? So you're not engaging in any imputation when you are a direct realization of emptiness. But in post meditation, when you think about emptiness, which itself is permanent, you can still impute upon it qualities. That's what we were just talking about before when I was asking Paul and Mikhail about whether that was right, that in post meditation, that's when you are imposing some quality on phenomena, when you are designating them, when you are, the appearances that occur to you that appear to be inherently existent. Once you've realized emptiness, you can realize that they are merely designated. They don't exist the way that they appear as being truly existent or inherently existent, that they are only mere designations. Okay. Anyway, we'll talk a little bit more on Monday about that. Does anyone else have? I know Sean is not satisfied yet, but we'll get to that. Anyone else have a? Yeah, John, what do you think?
Just really, maybe as of a quick answer. So this, I can't remember how it's translated, Rangrik, how we're translating that term, but that's
awareness or autocognition or
autocognition. The argument has already been passed that is not only it's rejected on on the ultimate level, but also on the conventional. Is that to say that at Rangrik is just completely wrong? It is an inadequate and it's not the Buddha's teaching.
Well, the Buddha did teach it, but with an ulterior motive, right?
Oh, okay.
Right. So
that is good.
In the Lankavatara Sutra and so forth, but in the 10th chapter, we were talking last time,
Right.
sort of going on to some things that seem to be contradicting the first 9 chapters that are found in the Chinese canon. It says that Rangrik doesn't exist, that reflexive awareness is the way that Jay Garfield and Jimpa are translating it often. Self-cognition, autocognition, self-knowing. So from although some people will say, some of the Tibetan traditions will say that, come on, Chandrakirti was only refuting wrong Rick ultimately. He never refuted it conventionally. That's not the position that Lama Tsongkhapa takes in reading Chandrakirti. He says Chandrakirti definitely rejects autocognition, reflexive awareness, both ultimately, which you would have to say everything is rejected ultimately as existing, and also conventionally, it doesn't exist conventionally. So the short answer to your question is, yeah, from Lama Tsongkhapa's position on Chandrakirti, autocognition, reflexive awareness does not exist conventionally or ultimately.
Well,
Okay.
so what term does Tsongkhapa use for the fact that just viewing an object infers that there was a subject viewing that object? Because if is that their version of wrong Rick, or is that?
No. When we talk about how do you establish the subjective side, right? How do you establish the object? By the mere perception of it.
Right.
How do you establish the perception? You establish the perception not through wrong Rick, which is what the Chittamatrans would say, but by a remembering consciousness afterwards that thinks, I saw that blue object. So in saying that, you are establishing both the object and the perception of that object. You say, I saw that blue object, that establishes the object, and the part that says, I saw, they are intimately related. You can't have the perception of an object without the perception.
But what is the term Tsongkhapa is using for that aspect of recognizing the subjective aspect?
I'm not sure there's a particular term. What do you think, Mikhail or Paul? Do you know? Is there some?
I think, as you just said, it's a remembering consciousness that brings your awareness of the fact that it's a reflection, as we say, reflecting on, I had that experience.
Right. So that is not considered to be a reflexive awareness. That's considered to be a remembering consciousness. Okay. So yeah, a couple of people. I think Karen had raised her hand to say that she had to leave, so she's left. So any last questions before we finish? Nadine, anything? Doris? Jennifer? No? Okay.
Yes, Venerable. I was wondering about in the last verse from Father and Son Sutra,
Yes.
it uses the word sense town. What does town mean there?
The next to the last verse.
No, the last verse.
Or the last verse. That our sense towns are devoid of signs, O sage. Of this you have seen it as it is. So Venerable Joan translated that as what? You, conqueror, see the aggregates as devoid, likewise are also the elements and spheres. The city of the senses. So I think this is, I don't have the Tibetan right in front of me. I think this is Trongkier or Kier, which means like a city or a town. What did Jimpa translate it? Our sense towns. The city of the senses is devoid of signs. Everything is also seen by you, sage, as it is. So I will try to give an explanation. Nothing comes up right now what the terminology, why the Buddha referred to the senses as a town. I'm not sure what that means. I'll have to do a little research. I'll try to have for Monday for us for that. Nadine, you came back on. Do you have any thoughts? Any questions?
Uh, in the Sutra of Golden Light, there is the senses are compared to a village in the Golden Light Sutra.
Okay,
And
that could be the same. They could be another translation of the same word. So did any explanation there what's meant by the senses as a village?
mm, what's meant by it, I don't know, but it is definitely compared to an empty village where soldiers and robbers are uh, going through the empty houses. It's
Ah,
very
okay. So that could be a clue for checking what that means. Mikhail, did you have a question? Yeah, or comment?
About that, could it be referring to the 12 link analogy or image that we have of the empty house with 6 windows? Because the word in Tibetan is Tsong, which can also mean just house.
Tong?
Tsong.
How do you spell that?
So it's as in Trong care, but just Trong.
Oh, Trong,
Yeah,
just Tong.
just Tsong, yeah.
Right. So which link is that?
Mm. Something like 5 or 6, I'm not sure.
That's called the six sense bases. So that's represented as as a uh, as an empty house, right, with the various windows. So I think that what that means is that through in that house, you're looking out through the various windows, like the person like the guy in the basement who's looking at the monitors, right, of the various surveillance cameras of the various places. So the mental consciousness is aware of what is seen by the eye consciousness and the ear consciousness and the nose consciousness and so forth. What is the word trong is used where in that, Mikhail?
No, I'm not saying it is used. I'm just seeing that in the dictionary it can also mean just house.
Oh, I see.
I was thinking, yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to prolong this. I know people need to go. I was just going to say, though, I think Wangpo Zhong would translate into Sanskrit as Indriya Grama. And Indriya Grama is another word that just means people or inhabitants. So there might be some weird metaphor that's going on in this that didn't really translate into Tibetan. So who knows?
Right. Thank you, Paul, for that. So without commentary, I'll have to do a little investigation. So let's dedicate at the end our virtues. Hopefully we've created some. Due to these virtues I've created today, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha, and as a result of that, lead all beings without exception into that very same state. Due to these merits, may the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not arisen in my mind and the mind of others, may it arise and grow, and may that which has already arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And then for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's reincarnation, peerless teacher and assembly of children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Pratika Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with your lineage, all objects of refuge of the infinite realms, please bestow here and now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you, Lama Zopa, wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, I make requests. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the victorious one's teachings and for the welfare of mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace, at which point I lost hope. Nonetheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the Triple Gem and the truths of the great waves of bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. Finally, you who are my eyes for viewing all the infinite scriptures, supreme gateways for the fortunate ones traveling to liberation, engaging with skillful means moved by mercy, illuminating spiritual friends, I make this request. Please live long and stable lives. So it's interesting, long and stable. Long life can be okay, but stable would be better also, because you can have a long life and filled with illness and all sorts of other interruptions. You want to be long and stable. Okay, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing some of you on Monday. And thanks for the reference from the Golden Light, Nadine. I'll check that out also. See you at least on next Saturday. Hopefully more people will be here. Take care.
Thank you,
Thank you
Venerable
very
George.
much. Keep your minds happy.
Thank you, Venerable.